Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Today's daf is daf Vav. We start from the two dots. It's around 15 lines from the top. Iboilu. Yeah, we learned in the Mishnah that any korban that was shechted shaloi lishma, it's kosher, but the bailam doesn't fulfill his obligation of whatever neder he made to bring a korban. Suppose he said, I'm going to bring an oila, and shechted l'sham shlamim. He could still bring it onto the mizbeach, but he still needs to bring another oila. So boilu, kipru mashabo loy kipru. Lamaisa, if you bring it onto the mizbeach, could the oila be mechaper? Yeah? Bittul mitzvah say, whatever kapara oila brings, is it kipru mashabo? He just has to bring another korban, but it served as a kapara or denisht. Rav Shisha b'eder v'idem established loy kipru. These are kedaytich kipru, sheinu lame abba. What do you mean? If it was mechaper, why would he have to bring another one? Right? Savad, that's not mechaper. Ve'elamai loy kipru lamu kariv. So if it's not mechaper, so why bring it at all? Yeah? So the Gemara says, if you're going to tell me that it's not mechaper, then I understand. I can understand why you have to bring it anyway. Why? Because it was originally hufrash or hukdash l'shem oilu, let's say. So now that you changed it l'shlamim, it's mikoyach l'shma ka'asi, right? Since it was hukdash already for a korban, so you still can bring it even though it's not mechaper. V'sheni lo mehuba mechaper. The second one will be mechaper. Li amud kipru. But if you're going to tell me that the first one is also mechaper, even though you shechted shloi l'shma, so sheni lo mehuba, I don't need another one. Okay, so in Mela, the Gemara's maskana is on the shaila that the first one is not mechaper. Iboilu nacha shaila. Aseid la'achar fresh mechaper or lo mechaper. What happens? Guys mafresh and oila. Stam a shaila and kachim. Guys mafresh and oila. And the oil is mechaper for any bittul mitzvah say. So suppose he didn't put on tefillin one day, and he's mafresh and oil. Then after the afrosha, goes another day without tefillin. He wants to know if this oil, when they're makar of this oil, could it also cover the other bittul mitzvah say that he was over l'achar afrosha. So boilu, I said l'achar afrosha mechaper or loy mechaper. Mir mina midav chatas ma chatas to koydem afrosha and l'achar afrosha loy. Chatas it wouldn't work. Only whatever Averu you did before the Afrosha's Chatas. Hachanami the Kodim Afrosha and Lach Afrosha Loi. Yeah, so two over here by Oila as well. Oidoma Loi Dami Lachatas. No, it's not similar to Chatas. Why? Because you see there's a very big distinction between the Kapara of a Chatas and the Kapara of an Oila. The Chatas are called Chet v'Chet Boila Suyachad Chatas. Because in every Chet you have to bring another Chatas. Right? So in Oila, that's why it doesn't work from before Afrosha to after Afrosha. But over here by Noila, keep the Ikakam Asiga B'Mechapra. Oila could be Mechaper on a few bittul mitzvah says that you violated before Afrosha. So Mamela, once you see that you can bundle together a bunch of Isurim and Oila be Mechaper and a bunch of them, so I said Lach Afrosha not be Mechaper, maybe it also works for anything that you were over after Afrosha as well. So the Gemara is a Shaila again, if a guy is Mafresh and Oila, he wants it to cover a couple of Averas that he had done before the Afrosha, and then after Afrosha he violated another Asay. So now he wants this Oila, which is Mafresh yesterday, to be Mechaper even for the Asay of today. Toshem Afasomach, Yoda Rosh Oila v'nirtzel Lechaper Olav. There's a mitzvah Asay of Smicha when you bring an Oila. So the Gemara says, Smicha Mechaperes. Why does it have a Somach and v'nirtzel Lechaper? Smicha is not Mechaper. V'alein Kapar Lebadam, Shenemer Ki Adamu Benefesh Yechaper. So what does the Torah mean? It's referring to a guy who didn't do smicha. He made smicha shiore mitzvah. Shiore mitzvah means he wasn't goyresit. Made it like shirayim. He didn't do it. Malol v'akasav ki'ilu loy kiper. The Torah considers it as if this bittul mitzvah say wasn't the scupper with the oila. My love the keeper say the kodem afrasha. Look keeper say the smicha that will say la'achar afrasha, which means what does it mean keeper and like keeper? Keeper means it was mechaper for whatever bittul mitzvah say you did before the afrasha, but the smicha that you didn't do, you violated this asay, or you didn't do it. Yeah, so that it can't be mechaper for because that was la'achar afrasha. So that's the raya. On the Rava, no, it's not such a raya. Say the smicha ka'amrit. You want to bring a raya from the asay of smicha. Shani also the chalkamrit le'shachet ba'amoy the smoich kai. As long as you didn't shecht it, you still have a mitzvah say to do smicha. So imus kahavi asay. So when did you violate this asay? La'achar shchita, right? Only once you shecht it, because up until the shchita you still have a mitzvah. So la'achar shchita like a boil and avada. There's no shaila we're never mesupik about this carbon, whether it could be mechaper for an aveira you did after shchita before zrika. That for sure not. Okay, so that's not a right for smicha, because smicha, that's the case by smicha. Smicha by definition, from the fact that you could still do the smicha up until the last second before shchita, means that the violation happened once the shchita happened. So then it's not a shaila that it's not going to be mechaper for nasei after shchita before zrika. So the Gemara says we can be mefarish the brisa by smicha differently. What does kippur like kippur? Kippur gavra means, Rashi says in the end, in the bottom over here, last few words in the Avav Amud Aleph, kippur gavra al kol shebiyod nitzl min yisurin, that is nitzl from yisurin, which means the gavra gets saved from yisurin. But like kippur kapashmaya, which means that Rashi says again, top Rashi of Avav Amud Aleph, l'nachasruach l'koinod lo yov mitzvah namuvcher. It's not a mitzvah namuvcher. So the Gemara says, milait nan. I'll bring you a raya for this interpretation. This is sometimes how you can understand the lashon of kippur and loy kippur. Milat nan v'anoisi b'Hashem nashar al kaf. The kippur al v'kon l'fnei Hashem. We're talking about Tzorah needs the shemen on his rosh. So the halacha is im nasan kippur, im loy nasan loy kippur. The kapara works only if you had the shemen, the kohen put on the rosh hamitar, the shemen, the leftover shemen. Rabbi Yechim Nuri Yomer shior mitzvahen, right? And bein nit meshlonet and kippur, or malon of because ki'ilu loy kippur. So Avadi has a kapara even without it, but it's considered as if he doesn't have a kapara. My ki'ilu loy kippur. What does that mean? If he has a kapara, what does it mean? It's considered as if he doesn't have a kapara. If you're going to tell me he needs to bring a carbon achita, he said, "Amr bein nit meshlonet and kippur." It works. Ela kippur gavra loy kippur kapshmaya. Hachanami kippur gavra loy kippur kapshmaya. So over there, what does it mean? What does the Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri mean when it says that avada you don't need the shemen for a kapara? So in other words, a kippur, but malu v'katzav ki loy kippur, which means klap shmaya you didn't do the mitzvah in a mufcher. So here too, where it says no, don't be mefarish Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri that way. When he says kippur or loy kippur, it means asim nami kippur matan b'hainis loy kippur matnas arosh. Means that it worked for the b'hainis, right? You have like a half a kapara for the b'hainis, but not for the rosh. You have to do the rosh again. So which means also by smicha, it's kippur for any assays that you violated before afrasha, but for the smicha itself, it doesn't work. Okay. Tashmar, pshimanayim, the kipsat seres loman boin. Yeah, nachmo, trying to be poisha the shaila. If somebody's mafresh a carbon, and then he's over an assay, could the carbon cover the bittul assay of after afrasha? Tashmar, pshimanayim, kipsat seres loman boin. Why do kipsat seres? Why do we bring kipsat seres? When it says kipsat, what is kipsat seres? Shlomim nenu. It's a chiv shlomim, right? It's coming to be mechaper. To must be mikdash v'kedashav. Ella siira yatzeres. Sorry, Nachmal. Toshma b'shimon oimi kivsat tzeres lama and boin. What's it come to be mechaper for? So because kivsat tzeres shlamim nenu, it's not coming for a kapar at all. It's shlamim. Ella siira tzeres lama and boin. Why do we bring siira tzeres? Al tumas mikdash v'kedashav. Okay. So now Shimon says like this: Nizrak dama shel rishon sheni lama karev. What do you need? Two goats to be mechaper to Mishmishka Kedashav. So if you have the first one, if you're already Zerik down by the first one, so you already have a kapara. So Sheni Lo Mekarev, why do you have to be Zerik the down by the second one? So Teretz says, Al Tumas Sha'oru Ben Zelazeh. Between the Zrikas dam of the first goat and the Zrikas dam of the second goat, somebody might have walked into the Beis Hamikdash, Betuma, and he needs a kapara. So really, Klal Yisrael would need constant kaparas for Tumas Mishra Kedashav. But the Torah is chaysach on the money. Really, the Torah chasam on money Mishra Yisrael, you don't need to bring it. But the second one backup, between the Zrika the first and the Zrika the second one, we are chayshish, and that's why you bring it. Over here, if somebody walked in between the first Zrika and the second Zrika, right, you're telling me that the second Zrika would be mechaper for this guy who walked in between the first and the second Zrika. But how could the second Zrika be mechaper for that period that sawyer was already hufrash mikoidim lechen. So you see that a carbon that was hufrash can be mechaper up until the zrika for whatever averas a person does in that time. So the Gemara says no, don't prove it so quickly. If taka they're mafresh both karbonas at the same time, then you're right. The proof from here. But here we're talking about that there was zoyrik the first one, and then there were mafresh the second sawyer, and then there was zoyrik the second sawyer. So you don't have a raya that the second sawyer is mechaper for la'achar afrasha. Okay. One asks, why are you really going to be moikim a pasuk that this is the case? It's in a case where there weren't mafresh in the basachas. You're narrowing down the pasuk. In other words, the pasuk is referring every Chag HaShavuos. That's what happened. No, it doesn't make sense. Omer Rav Papa, okay, I have a different answer for you. Why you can't prove it from Seirei Atzeres? Karbonas Tzibur Ka'amrit, Shani Karbonas Tzibur, the Lev Bezin Masna Alein. Karbonas Tzibur is different because Karbonas Tzibur, you have Lev Bezin. Lev Bezin, the heart of Bezin is Masna. They make a Tanai on all Karbonas Tzibur that the classification of the carbon shouldn't be chal right up until the point of shchita. Kedivin Rishmol, don't read the Rishmol. Karbonas tzibur saken meshachten l'mashehen. Saken meshachten l'mashehen. Whenever the saken is mesheches, you pull the saken, you're about to shchita. That's what's kaveya the afrosha of the carbon. It's going to be kaveya what kind of carbon it should be. So that's why when you have the Seirei Atzeres, so when you shech the first one and you're zorik dam, the second sawyer hasn't been set as a sawyer for the Atzeres because of Lev Bezin Masna Lane. Up until the last second, it's not. It doesn't get that shem of a sawyer, and therefore whatever aveirus happen up until that point can still be neskaper with the second sawyer. Does Rav Shimon really hold Lev Bezin Masna Lane? Yeah. So halacha is if you have leftover tmidim, you can't use karbonas that was bought with truma yeshana from last year, money that was raised from last year, the machzah shekel, so you have that funds, you put into truma salishka, and then you buy karbonas for that year, the karbonas tmidim and the mesafin. If you have leftover karbonas, you can't use it for the next year. Yeah, it has to be new every year. So what do you do with those karbonas? So Rav Shimon says it's not niftan tamimim, right? You can't be paided because it already has kedushas aguf. So Chachamim say niftan tamimim. Why? Because Lev Bezin Masna Lein doesn't have kedushas aguf until the last second before you shecht it. But Rav Shimon argues. Rav Shimon says it has kedushas aguf and he doesn't hold of Lev Bezin Masna Lein. So how could you say in Rav Shimon, Pshat in Rav Shimon is Lev Bezin Masna Lein? It's Rav Shimon who said that halacha, yeah, Lezrika Lezrika by Seirei Atzeres. Says the Gemara of Oid and Nachakasha, and even if you'll want to answer that the Pasuk is talking about a Hufar Shubazeh Chazeh, Hoboim Ne'Ribirmi Mirabzeira, Seirei Atzeres Shekibol Dam and B'shnei Kaises. If you take the dam in two separate kaises, right? When you shechta that v'nizrik dam shalishin sheni lama huba. Once you zerg the dam of the region, why do you need the sheni? Teretz is al tumas sha'oira ben zrika shel zelazeh. Right? He asked the shaila. Lama huba, and Reb Zeira told him al tumas sha'oira ben zrika shel zelazeh. So Atkan Lakam Aboyle, the whole shaila is only Elased La'achar Shchita. Right? Once he shechted it, both. So now the shaila is, before the Zrika, could it still cover any Averas that was done between the Shchita and the Zrika? Elased La'achar Afrasha Lakam Aboyle, it sounds like it's Pashat La'achar Afrasha. It would cover any Averas La'achar Afrasha up until Shchita. So Gemara says, no, that's not. A Raya Dilma Imtim Tzeloy Merka Amar. Really, Rabbi Yirmi was mistapik even la'achar afrasha, whether the sar can cover averas that was done la'achar afrasha. So why is it do la'achar shchita? He's saying intim tzeloymar that it could do it. In other words, it's been afrasha la'afrasha, where Shimon says that any tumah ira ben zelozeh, it's still mechaper for. Maybe is referring to a specific case where the afrosha didn't happen yet for the second soyer. Okay, so now I have a shaila. What about between shchita and zrika? So Lamaisa, the Gemara never was poishet this shaila of can a carbon, right, cover the chet, any chet that was done the achar afrosha. That was never nifshat, so we blibe with a shaila. Okay, we'll stop over here.